Hello everybody and welcome back to another Marvel Crisis Protocol character spotlight. Today we are taking a look at the original Black Panther, T'Challa himself. And yeah, we're going to go ahead and get right into things here. So he is coming in as a 4 threat with 4-3-3 defensively. So slightly stronger on the physical side, which is nice because it is the most common attack type. He's got 6 stamina, is a size 2, and a long mover. So long move is always nice, otherwise there's nothing too impressive or noteworthy so far. But then we get into his attacks and he starts to build a little bit more of an actual character here. So his first attack is a basic physical strike. This is a range 2 5 dice attack that's going to build him power based on the damage dealt. And it also has before damage is dealt, if the target character is size 3 or less, you can push the target, or you have to push the target character away from this character small. So one thing you want to keep in mind with that is while that is an amazing control ability, no trigger or anything like that, you don't have to deal damage or anything, just guaranteed pushes are amazing. As I mentioned there, it is a mandatory push. There is no may push the target character away from this character small. So if you're trying to double tap a target, you're going to have to keep that in mind. You're going to have to use the rest of his kit to make that work, or push them into something or something like that, because you can't punch them, push them small, and then that will get them out of range too if you go the full distance. So you have to bump them into something if you want to be able to attack them again, or use something else on his kit, and we'll look at that in a moment. But that is his basic builder attack here. Already a really powerful control attack. Just being able to guarantee push any size 3 or less target is very strong. Next, we go into Kinetic Burst. This is a 3-cost spender. It's an energy attack, so he's got a little bit of variety here. It is only a 6 dicer, but we'll get to that in a moment, and it is range 2. However, when making this attack, you can, during the pay power cost of the attack, he can spend up to 3 additional power, so up to a 6 cost, to add 1 die to the attack for each power spent. So if you're using this at 6, this is going to be a 9 dice attack, so that can hit reasonably hard there. And then it also has the Wild Explosive Force trigger. After the attack is resolved, other characters within range 2 of this character are pushed away from this character small. Pushed characters suffer 1 damage. So yeah, you get to shove everyone away from you and then deal some damage to them, which is really nice. And again, just really adds to his like kind of close range control that he's already got going for him with this initial strike. So you can kind of already see a bit of a theme for what he's going for here. Of course, this one does require wild, so it's not quite as consistent as the strike, but you get more potential targets with it. So obviously there's some value in that as well. We're going to skim over his leadership for now. We'll talk about that last, but first we're going to take a look at his active superpowers here. The first one is Mantle of the Black Panther, and this is kind of one of the really strong points of Black Panther's identity here. This is a 2-cost superpower that says when making attacks this turn, this character may reroll any number of its attack dice, and suddenly both of those prior attacks hit a lot harder. This is a really powerful ability because you can pay this once at the beginning of your turn and get this for both of your attacks, which is obviously really good. You can also combine that with cards like Wakanda Forever, so if it's Black Panther's turn, you use this superpower, you Wakanda Forever, you have full rerolls on that attack as well. So lots of value there, and obviously Black Panther is a part of the Wakanda affiliation, so obviously there's some kind of inherent synergy there. But yeah, this adds a lot of value to increasing the dice on your kinetic burst here. Going up to 9 dice with full rerolls is going to hit like an absolute truck. But even your builders, 5 dice full rerolls will hit really hard, and because you're gaining power based on the damage dealt, very high chance you're going to get a return on the power that you put into that. So really powerful effect. Great for pushing out extra damage, great for building power, great for fishing for that explosive force trigger. So yeah, just super strong ability there. His next one is also really good. This is another active superpower called Pounce. This is going to be a 2-cost, and we've seen this before on a few characters. If this character, or sorry, rather, this character is thrown small, it does not suffer damage if it collides with another character or terrain feature, so you won't take any damage for this, and it can only be used once per turn. So this is just a great way of giving him a little bit of extra mobility in there. You can throw yourself small to get into the fight. Maybe you got pushed away small or something like that. You're back in there. You can use this to follow up on your strike. So you punch someone, then you throw yourself towards them, and then you punch them again, because of course you had to push them away the first one. So definitely something you can keep in mind with that one. And of course, just an extra way of throwing a little bit of extra damage out there too. He is only a size 2, so that does only hit for potentially 3 damage on the physical side, but still, any little bit can help. So Yeah, lots of really great uses for this. Super versatile, gives him a little bit of action compression as well. So really good to have. Next, he has Vibranium Armor. This is a passive that says when defending against physical or energy attacks, this character adds blanks in its defense roll to its total successes. So yeah, I mean, 4 dice counting blanks or 3 dice counting blanks are both quite solid. The Mystic, of course, is not going to be quite as good for him, so that is a little bit of a weak side there. But yeah, definitely a really solid ability to have for Mr. Panther here. Taking a look at the flip side of his card here, not too much changes. The big thing that does change for him here is Vibranium Armor now works differently. It's no longer a passive superpower. It's actually been changed to a reactive superpower that costs you 2 power. It says when this character is targeted by a physical or energy attack, it may use this superpower. Add 2 dice to this character's defense roll against the attack. So you go up to, if you have the power to spend effectively 6, 5, 3. So of course you're still the exact same on Mystic. Doesn't affect that any more than it did before. But your defense dice for physical and energy have gone up. Whether or not that is better or worse than blanks is hard to say and very much based on the situation. But at the end of the day, I think it probably has a little bit higher of a ceiling. Obviously, if you're rolling more dice, you can get more successes, but you're more likely to get more successes on the ones where you're counting blanks. I think, at least. I'm not 100% sure. I haven't done the math on exactly where that breakpoint is, but I don't think 2 dice is that breakpoint there. So yeah, personally, I prefer the counting blank side. I find he goes down a little bit faster on his flip side for me. It's also just because you have to pay power, and that gets a little expensive because, there's still only 5 dice builders. So even with full rerolls, I find usually when I play him, Panther isn't sitting on a ton of power. But that your mileage may vary there based on how well your builders are going and things like that. And of course, you are on your flip side, so you've taken 6 damage at this point as well. So lots of things to consider there. But yeah, just kind of a bit of a side grade, probably overall weaker, especially because you have to pay for it. But still really solid defensive tech, still really good against physical and energy. Not so much on Mystic, so definitely keep him away from your opponent's Mystic attackers. Lastly, we'll take a look at his leadership here. It is King of Wakanda. It's for the affiliation Wakanda, obviously. And it says, while an allied character is attacking, defending, or dodging during the modified dice step, it may spend 1 power. If it does, it may reroll one of its dice. So at this point, we've seen this leadership in a few different places and a few different variants of it. But I think this is the original version of this leadership, where it's basically just pay a power, roll a die. And yeah, generally speaking, these are considered pretty good. It's not my personal playstyle, so I don't have much experience with this leadership. I'm not a huge fan of paying power to roll dice or to reroll a single die myself, but a lot of people have seen a lot of success with this leadership, so I can't knock it too hard. Clearly, it's working for a lot of people, and it is just generically useful. I mean, everyone can benefit from a reroll, whether they prefer it defensively, offensively, whatever. You can do this multiple times in a turn as well, so of course you can only do it once per attack, but if you're making 2 attacks or if you're being attacked multiple times, you can reroll on all of those, so that's obviously very nice as well. Yeah, it's very versatile, very straightforward and relatively easy to use. Obviously, when you're attacking, you want to keep in mind, if you're paying a power and you're building power off of this, whether you've got a roughly 50-50 chance of getting another success. So 50-50 chance you're getting that power back and dealing extra damage sounds pretty good. But yeah, definitely a really solid leadership. Just doesn't fit my personal playstyle, so I don't have a crazy amount of experience with it. As far as cards go, Black Panther here has 3 cards that he can play. The first one is Bast's Blessing. This is one of the newer cards for him, I'm pretty sure. It is an active action card, so it's going to require him to use one of his 2 actions, and he spends 3 power to play this card and immediately make the attack shown above. This is a range 3 6 dice mystic attack called Power of the Mother God. Before damage is dealt, place this character within range 1 of the target character. It's got a double wild trigger, Hunter's Joy. Choose an enemy character within range 2 of the target character that has not been targeted by Power of the Mother God this turn. This character makes a Power of the Mother God attack targeting the chosen character. Notably, this doesn't have the text that some of these abilities say, where that doesn't have this trigger on it than the second one. So you can actually keep chaining this through an opponent's team. Of course, it does have the clause that you can't target the same character with it twice, so you're going to have to keep that in mind. But yeah, you could in theory chain this through your entire opposing player's team if they've lined up all their characters and you're getting that double wild every time. Usually, I think this is kind of a mediocre card at best. The double wild trigger isn't the most consistent thing. Placing the character off of them is nice, and giving you a mystic attack is also nice, but that's usually a really hard trigger to get, and I don't think it's worth the 3 power if you're not getting it. However, in the case of Black Panther 1, where you have the ability to use Mantle of the Black Panther to get full rerolls on any number of your attacks this turn, if you can get that chain going, 6 dice full rerolls Mystic into multiple of your opponent's models can hit like an absolute truck. It's going to help you get that Hunter's Joy trigger as well. So I think it's at least interesting with this Black Panther, even though maybe still not the most competitively viable card in the world. Yeah, I think it's a really interesting card for him, but not sure if I'd go as far as to say it's a good card for him. Still, could be a lot of fun, and definitely one of those things where if you get to have that amazing turn where you just rip through an opponent's entire team in one turn using Boss Blessing, it can definitely feel really good. Now, of course, one thing you do have to keep in mind is this is also a Wakanda card. You cannot use this in somewhere like, let's say, Avengers, where he's also affiliated, and you'd have access to something like Steve 3 to guarantee the trigger. Unfortunately, that is not the world we live in here. He's not allowed to do that, so this does have to be played in the Wakanda affiliation, but also worth acknowledging, you even have an extra reroll there as well if you're using his own leadership, so you can keep that in mind as well. The next one here is another Wakanda card. This is Vibranium Shielding that can be played by original Black Panther or Shuri. They pay X power to play this card between 1 and 5. This round, that character and allied characters that are within range, whatever X was, of this character, gain the Invulnerability Innate Superpower. So the Invulnerability Superpower says when this character would suffer damage from an enemy effect, reduce the amount suffered by 1 to a minimum of 1. This is just an incredibly good card. I mean, it's great for himself. That's always good. Even if you just pay 1, so he just has it on himself, it's still probably worth bringing. But the fact that you can give this to other models, you can choose to stack this with other damage reductions, specifically ones that can go to 0, such as Beta Ray or Thanos or a handful of other models, where you have this one go first and then theirs go, and you can actually reduce an attack that was dealing 2 damage down to 0. Really, really rude. Yeah, super powerful cards. No real notes further than that. It's just insanely good. Next is Wisdom of the Ancestors. This is his unaffiliated card, so this is one that he can play regardless. And it can be played by either T'Challa or Shuri, so notably any of the Black Panthers, not just this one. It's an active card, and he spends 3 power to play it. This round, when the character that played this card rolls attack, defense, or dodge dice, it counts skull results in its roll as successes. This is another one that I think is probably most interesting on Original Panther here, just because he has that ability to go full rerolls, which can really get screwed over when you roll a bunch of skulls. So being able to kind of stack that with the rerolls he already has, and now you say, okay, well those skulls are suddenly good for me, so I don't mind that I can't reroll those because I want them there. Really, really good. So yeah, just very, very solid a piece of tech for him to have. 3 cost can be a little expensive, but if you're putting that on something like your builder, you're paying 5 into that turn, but if you're able to double tap with your builder, you're probably getting it back with full rerolls, counting skulls, because that's just going to hit like an absolute truck. Stack that with his own leadership. Of course, you're spending extra power for that, but still, full rerolls plus an extra reroll, counting skulls is just going to hit so, so hard, and you're just going to absolutely murder whatever you feel like going into that turn. So, yeah, really interesting card with T'Challa here. A little bit of a high power investment, so whether or not that's worth it to you kind of depends on your playstyle and what you're having your Panther do. If he's kind of running around being more of a control piece and you find he's often low on power, he's using his pounce all the time, stuff like that, maybe not the option for you. But if you really want him to be like, okay, this model is dying this turn, fantastic card and definitely worth considering. As far as affiliations go, Black Panther is involved in 2 different affiliations. The first one, of course, being Wakanda, where he is a leader, so there's obviously some value to that right there. A little bit of an anti-synergy with Wakanda, of course. Three of the models in Wakanda have T'Challa as their alias name, so you cannot run them together, including one of the other leaders. So unfortunately, you cannot run him under King T'Challa's leadership, which would be absolutely amazing for Mr. Panther. Being able to deal damage off of pushes would just be so good for him, but unfortunately, he can't have that one. As far as the other leaderships go, I do think he gets something kind of interesting out of Killmonger's with his kind of reroll tech there. Being able to add dice and then have rerolls on that die feels pretty good. So yeah, I think that's one of the solid choices for him there. Just because, again, you add that to your builder, you're rerolling it, there's very good odds that that's going to be a success. So you're going to be able to deal a little bit of extra damage here. You're going to be able to gain a little bit of extra power, and all of that feels really good. So there's definitely some value to running him with the Killmonger Usurper here for sure. Looking at M'Baku's leadership, I think he also benefits from this one. I mean, kind of similarly to how most models would, but because he is such a good kind of secure control piece, he definitely likes being able to stay on those objectives. He's not too worried about being pushed or placed usually because he has access to that pounce. So the first part isn't always going to be that important to him, but the second part there will also be fairly relevant. With his rerolls, he's more likely to pull a wild in his attacks, so being able to use that part to kind of switch some of his other dice over to hits is definitely good for him. So yeah, there's definitely some value to either of these other leaderships here, and of course his own is greatly appreciated by a lot of Wakanda as well. Most of the models here would definitely benefit from a little bit of dice modification if they don't already have some of their own. Stuff like Shuri, of course, providing her own as well. But yeah, in general, he fits really well with the rest of the Wakandan team here, and yeah, I think he's a very solid inclusion whether you're running him as leader or not. The other affiliation where he is affiliated and where I personally have most experience running him is in Avengers. Personally, I am a huge fan of him under Original Steve, where he can reduce the cost of his mantle or his pounce by one, meaning he always has at least one of them online, even if he hasn't done or taken any damage at all throughout the game. That means with the pounce, you can pretty consistently get turn one attacks, which feels really good on midline secure objectives because that's an attack that you're going to be able to push them off of the point. So a great way to score up a really early game. And then as the game goes on, you're going to be able to use that for the full rerolls and hopefully get some more damage and things like that going. So yeah, really beneficial leadership for him there. Definitely a good time running those two together. Of course, you do have to be careful because they have very similar defensive tech and they both kind of suck against Mystic. So you're gonna have to keep that in mind when you're playing them, that you're on a little bit of a weak side to Mystic there. Sam is another leader that I think runs it really well with Panther. Sam, generally speaking, prefers kind of bulkier models that appreciate the mobility. And while Panther doesn't necessarily need the mobility, he has his own pounce. He doesn't hate it either. But the big thing is that healing, because Panther is a really obnoxious model to put damage on sometimes, especially if you're playing the right scenarios. Stuff like Superpowered Scoundrels, where everyone has cover, is a great place for Panther because cover counting blanks is just incredibly obnoxious to break through. So being able to heal him up a little bit once in a while as well is really nice from Sam's leadership here. And of course, both of these models do also like that scenario because they ignore cover, so that's another kind of point towards running the combination of models and scenario. So yeah, he's got a great home under either of those leaders. I think he could at least be interesting under First Avenger here, but he doesn't really care too much for the leadership there. He doesn't really have many triggers that he's trying to get. Explosive Force is a solid trigger, so if you're doing this as a six dicer just for the pushes, then yeah, Explosive Force is probably worth, keeping that extra power open to be able to guarantee. But most of the time, with your full rerolls especially, you're going to be able to get the trigger on that anyways. And your basic attack here that you're using more frequently doesn't have any triggers you're trying to fish for. So unfortunately, I don't think he gets too much out of that one. And we're not really going to talk about Hulkbuster's leadership because, I mean, on one hand, it kind of affects everyone pretty similarly. One of his weaknesses is throws. He's not a huge fan of having stuff thrown at him, so that is worth acknowledging, but it's just in general not that great of a leadership unless you're in very specific matchups, so we're not going to talk about it too much. But yeah, I think he's a pretty self-sufficient model. He doesn't really He's not much of a support piece, so he's not really helping many other models too specifically, although he is a candidate for reserve members. So if you're playing the reserve members card, he can give the benefit, because even though his leadership isn't an Avengers leadership, it is a leadership ability on his card, so you will be able to benefit from that using reserve members, which is always nice to see, and definitely another kind of point in his favor there. But really, yeah, he's not doing much to benefit other models, and he doesn't really need help from many other models here either that I can think of. So yeah, he's just a really, really solid piece that, being affiliated is obviously a good thing. And I think that's kind of the general idea, looking at affiliations as a whole, where you might want to splash him. He's a pretty solid model on his own. He doesn't need much from other things. He appreciates a little bit of power to get the ball rolling in the early game. It's why I like him under Steve 1 so much. So some leaderships that might help him with some early power could be solid. I think he could be really interesting somewhere like Emma Frost, because she also appreciates kind of the same things Sam appreciates, those bulkier models that she can heal up. And then she's also going to be helping get him online power wise a little bit quicker. So that's always good to see. Definitely worth considering bringing him under Emma. Meanwhile, I don't think he benefits as much from leaderships that are giving you, a couple rerolls here and there. Don't get me wrong, he still doesn't not benefit from them, but because he's already got kind of his own source of that, he doesn't really need much more in the way of dice consistency. So it can't hurt to have those there, but I don't think that's kind of a specific reason to put him somewhere like Guardians or Daredevil Defenders. He's still an excellent model, and I could see him doing really well in either affiliation. And in the case of Guardians, defensively, the reroll could be really, really nice because, defensive rerolls counting blanks is amazing. But he doesn't really need it all that much. He's kind of doing his thing with or without that, so that's kind of worth acknowledging there. I could see him being really interesting somewhere like Red Skull 3 Cabal, where you're gonna have that, you're treating a skull as a crit, so you're getting extra dice. You can re-roll that die. That's a die that you wouldn't have been able to re-roll before as well. That's now treated as a success. So all really, really good things there. So yeah, definitely a really solid leadership choice for him in Red Skull 3. But personally, I think one of the most interesting affiliations you can run him in is probably something like Kingpin Criminal Syndicate, where he has that guaranteed push. He's relatively annoying to take down on his front side, so he's gonna be staying on the healthy side longer. He's gonna be really playing that secure objective game, and I think he works really, really well somewhere like a Kingpin Fisk. So also a strong place to consider him. And for the same reasons, something like a Modoc Crimson as well could be interesting because he's usually going to be contesting an objective token. So he's going to be getting that extra benefit there, which can be nice, especially on defense. Again, just really pushing that. I'm already counting blanks, and I'm going to be even more obnoxious to take down. So yeah, lots of good value from a few different things there. But in general, I just think he's a really good model, and you can kind of play him anywhere and see reasonably good success with him. I mean, he's super fast, so he has no problem keeping up with stuff like Web Warriors. He's got great control as well. So again, playing right to their ball game, relatively annoying to take down, all really good things that they like to see. Also some of their kind of counters, stuff like Ancient Venom being run into them, which says, "Oh, you can't modify your dice." Well, he doesn't really care because he's counting the blanks. He's not actually modifying them. So yeah, that's really good for him there. But yeah, he's kind of good everywhere, I'll be honest. I think that just about does it for this character spotlight. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, please do drop a like down below. Very, very curious to hear what you guys think as well on Mr. Panther. Are there any specific combos or synergies that I didn't mention here that you guys think are really, really good with him, whether that's a model, a leadership, a tactics card, whatever? Definitely let me know. Very curious to hear where you guys see the most success with Panther here. Personally, like I said, I found a lot of success with him in Avengers. I absolutely love him there, and I just think he's a really good model that can kind of play anywhere and be really, really strong. I've been playing around with maybe the idea of doing a kind of just Kingpin, everyone has hard control sort of list, and I think he definitely goes really well in something like that. So that's probably some of the places that I'm leaning towards with him. But I generally play a very kind of control, secure, heavy game. So I'd be curious to hear what people who play more attrition styles or more extract lists, how they feel about Mr. Panther here and how he can fit into some of those types of squads. Because I think he's really versatile and capable of doing a lot of different things in a single game. So really, really curious to hear what you guys think on that one. But that is going to do it for my thoughts. So once more, I hope you guys enjoyed. And until next time, Have a great day, everybody. Peace.